Hey guys, tonight we're slipping quietly into a world of misty mountain mornings, the soft crackle of bamboo in the wind, and the quiet pressure of 1,000-year code of honor. You're about to wake up in a samurai village, bare feet on packed earth, the scent of miso and charcoal smoke in the air. Roosters crow from the thatched rooftops, and somewhere down the road, someone's already sharpening a blade. Now, I won't sugarcoat this. You probably won't survive this life, not because of war or duels, but because of rice taxes, relentless discipline, and the constant threat of public shame. Oh, and lies. Lots of lies. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and the current time in the comments side. Love seeing where and when people are listening. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Your eyes open to the pale blue light of dawn. There's no alarm clock, but the sounds of the village are already rising. The rooster's been crowing since and you can hear the rhythmic splash of water being drawn from the communal well. Your sleeping mat is stiff, your back even stiffer, and outside, the wind is already whispering through tall cedar trees. You're not a noble. You're not a war hero. You're just a samurai's son, or maybe a rice farmer with distant samurai ancestry, which basically just means you work a lot and die with dignity. First, you bow to the family altar always. No breakfast, no stretching, not even a yawn before you kneel and offer incense to your ancestors. The smell is calming, or it would be, if your knees didn't ache every morning. Then comes your daily hygiene routine, which, to be honest, would horrify your dentist. A quick rinse with cold well water, a splash to your face, and if you're lucky, a stick of wood to chew on and clean your teeth. Toothpaste hasn't been invented, and the best you can hope for is not to smell like fermented tofu by mid. The house itself is modest paper walls, straw mats, and thatched roof tiles that creak with every wind gust. You can hear your neighbor sneezing next door, and the old lady across the alley is already banging her broom against the doorframe to shoo away spirits. It's superstition, sure, but no one dares not do it, just in case. The first meal of the day is rice gruel. Again, maybe with a pickled plum, if you're lucky. A sliver of dried sardine. The rice is more precious than gold. Metaphorically speaking, taxes are paid in it. Lives revolve around it, and heaven help you if the harvest fails. As you eat, your father reads from an old scroll about Confucian virtues. You nod solemnly, pretending to listen, but you're really just trying not to spill anything on your only robe. There's no room for laziness in this village. Every action, every word, carries weight. Honor isn't just a concept, it's currency, and it's taxed heavily. Outside, the village is already alive. Smoke coils from clay chimneys. Children run barefoot through muddy alleys, chasing dogs and each other. Women hang laundry and gossip about the new magistrate's oddly shaped ears. The blacksmith hammers something that sounds like he's angry at the metal. And maybe he is. You shuffle out the door, sliding it shut behind you. Sandals on, back straight. Every eye on you. Not because you're special, because you're part of the whole. The village is like a giant watchful eye, and everyone's expected to act their role. Historians still argue whether daily life in samurai villages was more communal or authoritarian. The truth is, it was both. You help your neighbor thatch his roof, but if he breaks the village code, you're expected to report him, even if he's your cousin, even if he's the guy who lent you that ladder last fall. Speaking of codes, remember this one. Don't be late, especially not for duty. Every man, woman, and child in the village has a purpose. Your younger siblings clean shrines. Your older brother trains with the local militia. You're hauling buckets of water from the river because the wells run dry again. It's not glamorous, but it's honest work. And here, honest work is the only path to respect unless you're born into status. In which case, congratulations, your sandals don't touch the mud. There's one brief moment of peace, mid-morning, when the breeze carries the scent of pine sap and sweet woods. You pause, wiping sweat from your brow, and think, maybe life isn't so bad. Then a village elder appears behind you, frowning at the pace of your book at hauling, and you remember no slacking. The samurai class is small in number but huge in influence. Even the lower-ranking samurai who live among the peasants carry themselves with quiet pride, and they can eagerly cut you down if you insult them. Sure, it's not common, but the possibility lingers like a faint mosquito buzz in your ear. You pass by the home of the village headman. His house is slightly larger, with an actual veranda and 2 cedar trees trimmed into perfect cones. He gives you a nod as you bow low, and you feel a surge of pride or terror. Honestly, it's hard to tell the difference. Lunch is still hours away. There's wood to chop, tools to sharpen, fields to weed. The pace of the village never slows, and if it does, something's probably gone horribly wrong. A fire, a death, a tax officer. As you make your way toward the communal fields, you spot a group of boys practicing with wooden swords. They're sweaty, serious, and trying very hard to imitate the stylized stances of their favorite war tales. But the ritual matters. Even pretending to be a warrior is a kind of respect for your bloodline. And somewhere, deep in the hills beyond the village, a real warrior sharpens a real blade, because in this world, peace is only ever temporary. You feel it in your shoulders first. That familiar ache from yesterday's labor that never quite goes away. You shift the wooden pole across your back to full buckets of water dangling from either end, and trudge along the packed dirt path toward the village fields. It's not glamorous work. No one claps when you arrive. No one bows in gratitude. But if these fields go dry, everyone suffers, including the local samurai who technically outrank you but somehow still expect free rice during bad harvests. The fields are already a flurry of movement. You spot Ichiro, your cousin, ankle-deep in mud and already shouting instructions at a boy who just dropped a hoe in the irrigation ditch. The sun hasn't even crested the hills fully, but sweat is already purling at your brow. Your sandals sink into the earth. This is how most of your day will go: mud, muscle, and monotony. Contrary to the flashy image of samurai life portrayed in kabuki plays and modern movies, most samurai didn't spend their days sword fighting on moonlit bridges. Many held bureaucratic posts, enforced village laws, or even managed agricultural output. You know this firsthand because your uncle technically most of his day calculating rice allotments and yelling at tax collectors for undervaluing his bean count. It's thrilling stuff. You stop to rub your back and stretch, then catch a whiff of something cooking. Someone nearby is grilling fish on an iron grate, and for a fleeting second, your stomach forgets it's still 3 hours to noon. A brief smile tugs at your face, but it vanishes when you remember that fish isn't for you, it's for the local temple monks, who eat better than most villagers, despite their vows of austere. Go figure. You pull weeds with your bare hands, dirt caking beneath your fingernails, while Ichiro hums an old work song under his breath. His voice is gravelly, probably from years of shouting at rice stalks like they owed him money. You hum along, not because you like the tune, but because it helps pass the time and keeps the crows away. Superstition, maybe. But the elders swear crows are drawn to quiet fields, and to the souls of the recently departed. Totally normal stuff. Speaking of animals, your neighbor recently claimed to have seen a tanuki, a shape-shifting raccoon spirit near the bath. Whether it was real, drunk, or just drunk and real, no one's sure. But now there's a makeshift talisman nailed above the bathhouse door, just in case. You can't be too careful with supernatural raccoons. Midday arrives like a slap. The sun's directly overhead, heat pressing down like a hand on your neck. You duck into the shade beneath a persimmon tree and sit cross-legged on a flat rock. Lunch is the same as breakfast, rice and pickles. But today, there's a half-boiled egg. A bee buzzes too close, and you swat it away with the sleeve of your robe, then instantly regret it. Swatting at bees is bad luck before a harvest, or after. Basically, bees are. A nearby farmer joins you, settling down with a grunt. He doesn't speak, just nods, chews, and stares off at the fields like he's waiting for them to say something. That's kind of how conversation works here. Quiet, slow, and mostly nonverbal. You'd think it'd be awkward, but it's oddly comforting. Historians still argue whether the rural labor in Edo-period Japan was more exploitative than cooperative. Villagers themselves would probably just say, it's work. There's no union, no weekends, no chance of striking. You work because your ancestors did, because your lord expects it, because the rice needs water and the weeds don't pull themselves. Afternoons bring a new round of tasks. You help repair a broken fence near the horse pen, a job that smells way worse than it sounds, and take turns pounding steamed rice into mochi with 2 other boys. The giant wooden mallet is heavier than you remember, and someone nearly loses a finger when he forgets to pull the dough away in time. You all laugh about it, mostly out of relief. Once, a wandering priest told your village that laughter offends the gods during work. That same week, lightning struck his umbrella, and now everyone treats giggling as a form of prayer, which, to be honest, is the kind of theology you can get behind. As the day stretches on, Your muscles burn, the sweat on your skin turns sticky with dust, and even your earlobes feel tired. You glance up at the sky not for signs of weather, but for birds. If you see 3 hawks flying in a circle, it's supposed to mean your house will get a visitor by nightfall. If it's crows, hide your money. By late afternoon, the tempo of the village changes. Tools are cleaned and stored. Children are wrangled from wherever they've wandered off to. Women begin preparing supper, the air filling with the scent of broth, boiled greens, and charcoal. You return the buckets you borrowed, bowing to the elder who lent them, and quietly thank the spirits for not letting one snap and soak your knees in front of everyone. That happened once. People still bring it up. It's never funny when it's you. Back at home, your father has returned from his post at the village gate. He looks worn, robes dust-streaked, but his eyes light up when he sees the egg you saved him. It's little things like this that keep the family bond tight. That and not embarrassing him in front of the village council. He tells you a rumor he heard from a merchant, that the shogun is planning a road tax on travelers, which could funnel more visitors and money through nearby villages. It could mean trade, it could mean trouble. Mostly it means new laws, which means more scrolls, which means your uncle will be insufferably busy for weeks. You finish the day scrubbing your hands at the water basin, your fingertips raw and your stomach rumbling. Dinner is warm, familiar. You eat slowly, grateful. The oil lamp flickers low, casting shadows that dance on the paper walls. You rest your head on your arm, back curved awkwardly on the floor mat, and think, maybe tomorrow the buckets will feel lighter. Maybe the rain will come early. Maybe the tanuki will stay away from the bath. But tonight, you sleep because dawn waits for no one. You wake before the sun again, as always. Not because someone yelled, not even because of the rooster this time, but because your legs ache from yesterday's work and your dreams were filled with phantom shouts from the dojo. You stretch, groan, and run your hand along the edge of your futon mat. Another day. Another chance to avoid being smacked with a wooden sword. You grab a stale rice bowl from last night's leftovers and chew on it while slipping outside, hoping to get to the dojo before the real students arrive. You're not officially allowed in yet only the sons of samurai with real status trained this early, but if you sweep the floor and refill the water basin, no one will stop you from watching, or copying, or imagining yourself as the next even though you're still figuring out how not to drop the bokken when your palms get sweaty. The dojo smells of cedar and old sweat. Its polished wooden floor glows faintly in the dim light of morning. A row of padded straw targets leans against the far wall. You set down the broom and begin sweeping in slow, practiced arcs, half meditation, half appeasement of the old instructor who may or may not be asleep behind the screen. You're not taking chances. As you finish, the door slides open. A pair of students shuffle in, both carrying wooden swords and both clearly trying to act like they didn't just argue over whose sandals are cleaner. They spot you, and for a second, you think they'll kick you out. But they nod. That's it. That nod. That's your invitation. You're in. At least for today. Training begins with kneeling, not fighting, not yelling. Kneeling. For 5 full minutes, you sit on your heels, back straight, trying not to wince as your feet go numb. Then it begins. One of the older students calls out a kata set sequence of moves and everyone shifts into motion. Sword raised. Step forward. Elbow tight. Strike. Pull back. Reset. Repeat. You mimic the moves from the back of the room, your borrowed bokken wobbling slightly in your grasp. It's not about winning or beating someone. It's about form, discipline, presence. A master once said that you should treat your wooden sword like it's made of fire. Hold it too long and it burns you. Release too soon and you miss your chance. You have no idea what that actually means, but it sounds profound, so you're not alone. A small boy beside you drops his sword and instantly bows his head, waiting for correction. The instructor, now definitely awake, walks past without a word. That silence, that's worse than a scolding. Shame, in this world, is the real punishment. Historians still argue whether these rural dojos truly prepared villagers for war or simply instilled obedience. But for you and others like you, it's the only space where class lines blur just a bit, where even a farmer's son can, for an hour, swing a sword and feel like it matters. After drills, you help carry in buckets of water and wipe sweat from the floor. You do it without being asked, because not doing it might mean never being allowed back. On your way out, you catch a whispered comment from one student to another. He's got good grip for a peasant. You don't smile, but it warms something in your chest. Outside, the day has brightened. The The streets buzz with traders, messengers, and children who clearly have no interest in school. Your path takes you past the small forge where the village smith shapes tools. Nails and on rare, occasion actual weapons. He's hammering a blade now, sparks flashing like fireflies. You pause just long enough to watch, the rhythm of metal on metal echoing like a heartbeat. The smith glances your way, then jerks his chin toward a pile of firewood. Without asking, you start stacking it. That's just how things work. Every gesture is a conversation. Every act is a chance to belong. Later, as the sun tilts toward noon, you wander toward the village, outskirts where the real warriors sometimes train. The difference is obvious. These are men hardened by Beloda, scarred, quiet. One wears his armor even during sparring, sweat darkening the silk beneath his plates. Another practices with a naginata, the curved blades slicing through the air in arcs so elegant they look choreographed. You sit far back, out of sight, and just watch. A dog wanders past you and flops down in the grass. Somewhere, a bell chimes from the shrine. You stay until your legs cramp and your stomach rouse, then finally rise and start heading back to the village. A cool breeze tugs at your sleeves. For a moment, you imagine yourself years from now, a maw on your shoulders, blades at your hip, and a name feared by bandits and respected by lords. But that's a long way off. Right now, your name is only known to the kitchen matron who yells when you track in dirt. On your way home, you pass a small group of kids dueling with sticks. One pretends to die dramatically, falling backward into a pile of leaves. The others laugh and start arguing about who gets to be the hero next. You smile. They have no idea how much it hurts to block with your forearm. You arrive home sore but energized, only to find that your father wants help repairing the roof. Of course, samurai training or not, no one escapes chores. You climb the ladder, grip the tiles, and try not to think about falling. You don't want to die over a shoddy thatch before you've even earned your first real scar. Dinner that night is plain but filling root stew and barley rice. As your family eats, you reenact a few of the dojo movements in slow, exaggerated fashion, earning laughs from your siblings, and a sharp eat first, play later. From your mother you do as told, but you also keep one hand curled under the table, still tracing sword grips in the air, just to make sure the movements stay in your muscles. Before bed, you practice one more kata, in the moonlight, outside, alone, silent, focused. 1,000 years of warrior, tradition distilled into a boy with a stick and a dream. The next morning begins with a hush, not the quiet of sleep or rest, but a silence that hums with tension. You notice it the moment you slide open your front door and step into the narrow alleyway between homes. No dogs barking, no children shouting. Even the old woman who usually sweeps her porch while humming some off-key folk tune has disappeared indoors. You tighten your sash and look around. There's movement at the far end of the village, subtle, almost still. A group of men huddled outside the tea house, not drinking, just watching, whispering. You know better than to ask questions yet. In this village, answers usually find you whether you want them or not. Instead, you drift toward the tea pavilion. It's one of the more peaceful corners of town, shaded by flowering plum trees and set slightly back from the main road. You know the tea master there, an older woman with hands like paper lanterns and eyes that seem to see through time. She's already seated when you arrive, quietly boiling water over a charcoal brazier. She nods for you to join her. You do. The tea ceremony here isn't just about sipping warm liquid and nibbling wagashi sweets. It's about observation, ritual, decorum. Every movement has meaning: the way you turn the cup, the way you bow, the way you fold your sleeve as you sit. You're not just here to drink, you're here to listen. The tea is earthy, bitter. It lingers on your tongue like an unfinished thought. As you sip, the tea master finally speaks. You've noticed the silence, she says. You nod. Then you've noticed the spies. Your breath stills, but you keep your face neutral. That's rule one, show no surprise. Spies. Here, you want to ask more, but she's already shifted the topic to plum blossoms and the price of ink. You're meant to listen between the lines. See, the shogunate doesn't trust villagers, not really. Even the loyal ones. Every so often a traveler comes through, harmless, quiet, asks too many questions about rice yields, martial drills, how many swords are stored in the granary. They might sleep at the inn, or the temple, or not at all. And just like that, reports go back to the castle. Historians still argue whether these informants were government operatives or just ambitious locals playing both sides. Either way, everyone in your village pretends not to know who they are, while secretly making lists of who might be one. You finish your tea in silence, bow deeply, and take your leave. You're halfway down the path when you spot the clean robe, simple sandals, a little too polite. You've never seen him before, but he walks like he's walked here many times. You nod as he passes, he nods back. That's all. Back in the heart of the village, the air feels thicker. Men talking clipped sentences. Women gather in corners with baskets they don't actually need to fill. Children are told firmly to stay indoors. Even the chickens seem quieter, which you didn't think was possible. You pass the temple and notice the monk's prayer flag has been reversed, a subtle signal, one known only to those who pay attention. Something's happening, or about to. You decide to seek out your uncle, the part-time samurai, part-time bureaucrat. He's not in his home, but you find him pacing near the granary, eyebrows knotted like a twisted rope. He greets you with a glance and a muttered curse. 3 men disappeared from Takano village last week, he says without preamble. Spoke out against their tax quota. Next day, gone. No word since. You ask what that has to do with spies. Everything, he replies. You think those men just vanished? You think the shogun doesn't know when a farmer whispers about rebellion? He lowers his voice, steps closer. Watch your words, and watch your friends. You walk home slowly, each footstep heavier than the last. For the first time in a long while, the village doesn't feel safe. Not because of bandits or famine, but because of fear itself. Invisible, pervasive, waiting in the corners of every room. Later that afternoon, you're sent to deliver pickled radish to the gatekeeper's wife. It's a short errand, but your mother insists. And when your mother insists, you obey. No questions. You take the back route, passing by the bamboo grove. It's cool here, the sound of wind rustling through the leaves like distant rain. You breathe easier until you hear voices. 2 men, speaking low. One mentions the name of a magistrate. The other curses about rising rice taxes. You recognize neither voice. You don't move. You don't make a sound. You wait until they pass, and then you wait even longer. Eventually, you deliver the radish. You smell bow, say nothing. By dusk, the village has returned to its version of normal. People pretend harder. Smiles are too wide. Greetings too enthusiastic. But no one mentions the man with the clean robe. No one discusses the prayer flag. No one talks about the whispers in the bamboo. That night, your family eats in careful quiet. Your father says grace to the ancestors, and your siblings chew with mechanical precision. After the meal, your mother tells a funny story about a neighbor's cat stealing fish. Everyone laughs just a little too hard. You play along. Before sleep, you pass the tea pavilion again. It's empty now. A single cup sits cooling in the shadows. You stare at it for a moment, then keep walking. Trust, in a samurai village, isn't given. It's managed, light fire, or a blade. And tonight, the edge feels closer than ever. The festival begins with drums. Not the war drums you sometimes imagine thundering down from a fortress, but small ones, held by children with flushed cheeks and painted faces. They thump clumsily but enthusiastically, drawing people from their homes like moths to lantern light. You feel it before you even see it, the shift. The loosening of shoulders, the gentle smiles, the rare day when everyone pretends that taxes are fair and the rice yield might just be enough. It's midsummer now, and the air is thick with heat and the scent of charcoal and sweet rice wine. You've traded your daily robe for one slightly less patched, and your sandals have been dusted clean, even though they'll be caked in dirt again by nightfall. Still, everyone makes an effort. That's part of the ritual. Paper lanterns swing from tall poles. Stalls open along the village's main road, simple things. Mostly grilled eel on sticks, pickled cucumbers, barley tea, and dried squid curled like paper shavings. There's even a game for the kids where you try to scoop goldfish from a basin using thin paper nets. Spoiler, the goldfish always win. You start your night helping your family arrange offerings near the shrine. Bowls of fruit, small cups of sake, dried rice cakes, and a few coins tied together with red thread. These are for the spirit's ancestors, wandering souls, and various gods that no one can quite agree on. A local elder swears the third god in the lineup is a deity of teeth. No one questions it. Once the offerings are placed, the dancing begins. It's slow, repetitive, and let's be honester, little awkward, but it's hypnotic, and soon your feet begin to move in sync with the others. Right step, left, sway, turn. You find yourself between an old man missing most of his teeth and a girl who looks determined not to smile. You both end up laughing anyway. Overhead, fireworks begin to crack. Not the big ones you hear about in castle towns. Just small bursts of light made by lighting powders wrapped in paper cones. They fizzle more than explode, but the children scream like it's thunder. A few boys try to light theirs twice and get yelled at by the festival overseer, a woman with a stick and the authority of a minor warlord. You steal away from the crowd for a moment to catch your breath beneath the plum trees. The lanterns cast soft shadows on the grass. Somewhere behind you, a flute begins to play a high, quivering note that lingers in the night air like a whisper you're not sure you heard. And then, someone mentions it. You know, about the kitsune, right? A boy near you says, nudging his friend, "Fox spirits." Of course. The story goes that kitsune are mischievous, shape-shifting. They take the form of beautiful women, or men with glinting eyes and two sharp teeth, and lead people into the woods with songs or riddles. Sometimes they play harmless tricks. Sometimes people disappear. You roll your eyes. But then again, maybe just stay away from the edge of the forest tonight, just in case. Superstitions pile up during these festivals. You're not supposed to step over certain thresholds after sundown. You mustn't say the word death out loud, or eat the last dumpling without offering it to the spirits first. A girl once forgot to do that, and the next day a storm ruined her family's entire barley harvest. Coincidence? Possibly. But in this village, why risk it? Historians still argue whether these rural beliefs were rooted in indigenous folk religion or simply reinforced by local authority to keep people in line. Honestly, you don't care where the stories came from. You just know that if you whistle after dark, your grandmother will smack the back of your head and mutter something about angry mountain ghosts. Back at the main square, a puppet show has started. The story is familiar, something about a trickster merchant and a rice thief who turns out to be a tanuki. The kids laugh. The adults pretend not to. You catch sight of the traveler, again the one from the tea pavilion. He's seated at the back, alone, drinking tea, and pretending not to observe every interaction. You don't approach him. You dance instead. Later, someone passes you a cup of sweet sake. You're technically too young, but no one enforces it during festivals. You sip. It's warm and makes your ears buzz. The music grows louder. Someone falls into the koi pond. Everyone cheers. As the night deepens, the village begins to unravel. In the best way, old rivalries are set aside. Samurai bow to peasants. Even the gatekeeper laughs. It's a rare and fragile truth one night where everyone agrees not to remember who owes what to whom. But it can't last. You feel it as the fires burn low, as the lanterns start to flicker, as the flute fades into silence. You help your mother gather your younger siblings, herding them like sleepy ducklings through the quieting streets. One of them clutches a paper fan painted with a fox's face. You pretend not to notice. At home, you change back into your work clothes, the weight of the day settling back onto your shoulders like a familiar robe. You lay on the mat, still hearing echoes of drums, laughter, and distant fireworks. But in the silence before sleep, your thoughts drift to the forest, to the flicker of a tail behind a tree, to a traveler's eyes that don't blink enough, to the dumpling you forgot to offer. You pull the blanket up higher and whisper a quiet apology, just in case. By the time the rooster crows the next morning, the magic of the festival has vanished, completely replaced by the return of order, rules, and something far less festive, judgment. You're barely out the door, a piece of barley bread in your mouth, when you notice the mood. It's sharp, taut, the kind of atmosphere that turns heads and silences laughter. A group of elders stands near the well, speaking in quiet tones. A few of them glance your way, not in greeting, but with the kind of look that makes your stomach knot. Someone's broken a rule. You're not sure what yet, but in this village, you never have to wait long to find out. Sure enough, by mid-morning, the town crier, an actual job title, despite the total lack of shouting, has summoned everyone to the square. The men line up in front. Women and children gather at the edges. The elders take their usual positions beneath the shrine gate, their faces stony with that particular brand of disapproval you only get from people who've memorized every law and lived long enough to enforce them. You shift on your feet as the accused is brought forward. It's Kenta. The boy is only a few years older than you, lanky, awkward, and usually more interested in fishing than anything else. But today, his head is bowed low, his wrists tied with rope, and his father stands behind him looking like he's aged 20 years overnight. His crime, theft a handful of rice from the granary. The entire square seems to exhale at once. Theft isn't rare in the world. In most places, a bit of food taken in hunger might earn a scolding, maybe rest. But here, in a samurai village, governed by the code of Bushido and the rigid structures of Edo law, stealing rice from the collective storehouse is not just a crime. It's dishonor. It's selfishness. It's a crack in the delicate porcelain of communal survival. The punishment isn't death. Not this time. But it's harsh. He'll be confined to his home for 20 days. Publicly watched. Barred from training, and worst of all, stripped of his family's insignia. His name is announced, written, and remembered. For now, he's untouchable. For years he'll be whispered about. You watch as he's marched back to his house. His mother is already crying. His sister keeps her face expressionless, though you see her hand shaking. The village turns away, quiet, deliberate, and you feel something curdle in your stomach. Not sympathy, exactly, but fear. Because it could have been anyone. One bad harvest, one mistake, and it doesn't stop there. That afternoon, your uncle assembles the village youth for an exercise in honor, which really just means drills, speeches, and reminding everyone what happens if you step out of line. You stand under the sun as he paces with a bamboo staff, quoting Confucian virtues between barked orders. Discipline isn't about obedience, it's about harmony, he says. You nod. Everyone nods. No one breathes too loudly. He pairs you off for mock duels, wooden swords only. You face Ichiro, who grins just enough to remind you that he's still faster. The staff slaps the ground. You strike, parry, circle. The rhythm is familiar, but your heart isn't in it. You keep glancing at the house where Kenta now sits behind paper screens, dishonored and silenced. Historians still argue whether punishments like these were purely for order or served as political theater. Here it's both. The spectacle isn't just to correct behavior, it's to remind you that behavior is all you are. Later, you help your father repair a section of the wall near the gate. He works without speaking, as if he's already used up his quota of words for the week. At one point, he sets down his hammer and says, not unkindly, "Your name is your blade." You dull it every time you speak carelessly. You nod, unsure if he's talking about you or Kenta or himself. That evening, the village feels darker than usual. The lamps burn lower. No one lingers in the streets. At dinner, your mother brings out pickled daikon, a treat, but no one comments on it. The silence says more than words ever could. After the meal, your sister asks if she can visit the temple. She says she wants to pray for Kenta. Your father considers this, then nods once. She leaves, head bowed, clutching a small pouch of rice as an offering. You wander out later too, unable to sleep, and find your way to the edge of the village. The wind rustles the trees. A pair of fireflies drift lazily near a pond. You sit down on a flat stone and listen. Behind you, someone coughs. You twist ready to greet whoever it is, but it's no one. Just the trees. Or maybe not. There's a saying passed around during long winters. When punishment falls, the spirits watch closer. You always assumed it was a bedtime threat. But tonight, with the moon high and silence pressing in on all sides, you wonder if there's more to it. And then, a whisper. Not in your ear, not in your mind, just on the breeze. You don't make out words, just breath. Like the village itself, exhaling, remembering. You stand and walk home slowly, avoiding every creaky plank, every loose stone. When you pass Kenta's house, you bow. Just slightly. No one sees. But you know, and he will too. Because in a place like this, shame doesn't vanish. It lingers. Like smoke in old wood. Like names etched in rice paper, like lessons carved in silence. You wake to rain, not a soft drizzle, not the kind that smells like damp earth and gives the rice fields a gentle sheen. This is the kind of rain that hammers the thatched roof until it leaks, drowns the firewood, and turns every dirt path into a boot-stealing swamp. Your mother curses under her breath as she rearranges buckets under the ceiling beams. Your father just stares out the open shoshi, watching the sky like it's personally insulted him. You don't say anything, there's no point. The weather has spoken, and today, everything else will obey. You slip on your straw, cape soaked, before you finish tying it and wade outside into a village that feels more like a river. Water sloshes around your ankles. Someone's laundry is floating down the road like a pale ghost. Children are nowhere to be seen. Even the dogs have taken shelter. The fields, flooded, completely, By mid-morning it's clear the season's second planting is ruined. The rice that was already waist-high now bends and bobs under inches of brown water. Worse, the narrow footpaths dividing the paddies have dissolved, which means someone, probably you, is going to have to rebuild them again. Your father sends you an Ichiro with ropes and wooden stakes to check the hillside above the irrigation canal. If it gives way, the entire east end of the village could flood. Again. Because yes, this has happened before. As you climb the muddy slope, the rain slackens just enough for the cicadas to start up again. Their buzzing seems louder than ever in the wet hush. You drive stakes into the ground and tie off the rope in intervals. But you know it's only a gesture. The land will do what it wants. Back in the village, the elders have gathered again. This time they're soaked, hooded, and visibly worried. The rice storage buildings, some built on stone, others Natar vulnerable, and worse, the regional tax officer is due within a week. You see where this is going. If the harvest is damaged and the tax still demanded in full, families will have to hand over food meant for winter, or tools, or livestock, or in some cases, children, sent away as indentured labor to settle debt. That night, a meeting is held. Not a formal one, just a quiet gathering beneath the veranda of the temple where the rain can't reach. Fathers, uncles, older brothers, no one raises their voice. Everyone talks like the shadows have ears. We send a petition, someone says, or fake the numbers, someone else offers, or tell the taxman we were hit by lightning, comes the muttered suggestion from the corner. No one laughs. Historians still argue whether peasant resistance in the Edo period was more common than record suggests. Most official documents depict obedient villagers, satisfied with simple lives, but scrolls don't capture whispered meetings, or the way your uncle's voice breaks as he says, "We can't survive another year like this." You sit in the back, legs tucked under, watching the adults try to outmaneuver a system that doesn't care about mud, floods, or fairness. The next morning it gets worse. The road collapses. Not entirely, but just enough that the bridge connecting the village to the outer rice fields falls into the swollen stream. A horse tries to cross anyway, slips, and breaks its leg. It has to be put down. The owner weeps not for the horse, but for what it meant. Transport, haulage, power, gone in an instant. By midweek, the rain has stopped, but the air feels thick and wrong. Humid and expectant, like the sky still has something left to say. You spend hours carrying sandbags, weaving grass mats, trying to patch the breach in the canal. Your hands are blistered. Your feet feel like clay. At one point, Ichiro falls face first into the muck, and no one even reacts. That's how tired everyone is. Humor has been taxed out of existence. You pass the traveler again, yes, he's still here. Still quiet, still watching. You wonder if he'll report all this to someone far away. Someone who will nod, scribble on parchment, and send back a higher quota, because what else would they do? At dinner, your family eats in silence. Even the pickles taste bland. You don't say what you're thinking, but it's written in the lines on your father's face, and the way your mother keeps counting the jars of miso paste. That night, lightning flashes on the horizon. Distant, but close enough to make the walls shake. You sleep badly. Your dreams are wet and full of noise. The next day, the tax officer arrives. Not early, not late, just perfectly, infuriatingly on time. He wears the robes of a mid-ranking bureaucrat and walks with the confidence of someone who's never once waded through a rice field. He's accompanied by a clerk, 2 guards, and a child with ink-stained fingers who holds the scrolls. He greets the village headman politely. Too politely. You can already hear the script. We understand your hardships, truly, but the shogunate cannot adjust its obligations based on whether rice is owed. Rice must be delivered. And that's exactly what he says. Word for word, as if read from a play. There's no riot, there never is, just quiet, resignation, and the soft sob of someone you can't quite identify. You want to say something, anything, but your throat feels blocked by the same mud you spent all week shoveling. Later that night, your father gathers the family and says only one thing. We give what we can, and we keep each other alive. It's not a solution, but it's the only truth that fits. You go to bed, exhausted, angry, scared, and somehow still grateful. Because the house is dry, because the food is warm, because for now, you're still together. And tomorrow, the sun might rise. The morning after the tax officer leaves is almost unsettling in its normalcy. The sky is clear. A faint breeze rustles the reeds outside your window, and for the first time in days, You smell freshly steamed rice instead of wet straw and mildew. It's as if the village itself has but you haven't. Your back still aches, your hands are raw, the tension still sits in your chest like a stone. But you get up, because that's what everyone does. You rise, dress, bow at the family altar, and step out into a world that demands movement, even when your soul wants stillness. Outside, the village is trying to pretend nothing happened. You help rebuild the small bridge with planks scavenged from the collapsed bathhouse shed. Ichiro shows up with a hammer and no instructions, which is how you know he's still not over falling in the mud last week. You don't say anything, you just hand him nails. Later, a group of women are replanting a small corner of field near the canal. No one says whether the crop will take, but they plant anyway. That's how survival works here. Stubbornness disguised as faith. You take a walk in the late afternoon, just to get away from the hammering. You head toward the edge of the village, past the old trees and the worn path that leads to the highest hill, the one with the best view of the rice terraces. You sit under the cedar tree that's been there longer than the village itself. You can see everything from here. The rooftops, the lantern hooks, the thin trail of smoke from the blacksmith's forge, and beyond that, the soft shimmer of the fields as the breeze rolls over them like silk. You watch as the villagers return from the day's labor, baskets in hand, shoulders low, but heads high. That part matters. You think of Kenta. His punishment ends soon. People still whisper when they pass his house, but less than before. He'll be back in the fields next week, not forgotten, but folded back into the rhythm, like a reed in the wind. You think of the disappeared sometime during the storm, no goodbyes, no farewells, just vanished. Was he a spy, a wanderer, a test? No one knows, no one asks. You think of the old tea master, who smiled when everyone else frowned, who said more in silence than others did with speeches. She's been ill lately. You make a note to bring her some radish pickles tomorrow, maybe a few flowers, if the hillside blooms again, and then you just sit. The sun begins to dip, casting gold across the valley. The trees glow, the rooftops burn softly in the light, the rice fields ripple like a living sea. A few boys pass behind you with wooden swords, arguing over who gets to pretend to be the shogun. Their laughter floats in the air like incense smoke. You let it carry you. Your hands rest in your lap. Your breath slows. For a few long moments, there's no worry, no hunger, no weight, just wind, just light, just now. You walk home slowly. As you pass the temple, the bell chimes. A quiet call, not for prayer, but for presence. You pause, bow slightly, and move on. Your house is warm when you arrive. The door slides open. Your mother looks up, smiles. There's miso soup on the fire, rice in the pot, a few plums in a dish. Your family eats in peace. After dinner, your father lights a candle and reads from a scroll about ancestors, perseverance, and duty. The flames dance against the paper screen. You half listen, half dream. And when it's time, you lie down on your mat, curl beneath your thin blanket, and close your eyes. You hear the night outside, the cicadas, the distant owl, the occasional laughter from a neighbor who still has a bit of festival joy left in them. And then, nothing. Peace. True peace. Not the kind enforced by fear or ritual, but the kind earned by enduring, by carrying on, by simply being here, by surviving. You don't dream of war or hunger or rice taxes tonight. You dream of wind in the trees, of laughter beside a stream, of fireflies that never burn out. Because somehow, despite everything, the village still stands, and you're still here. Wind down now. As the night deepens, your breathing settles into a quiet rhythm. The sounds of the samurai village begin to fade like the last ripples on a pond after the stone has sunk. The wind that once rustled the rice fields softens into a whisper. The trees outside your paper wall stand motionless in the moonlight, casting long shadows that stretch and settle like old stories finally laid to rest. Your muscles, so tense from the weight of the day, begin to unwind. Shoulders loosen, hands unclench. Your jaw releases. You're safe now, not just from the storms or the tax officers or the whispered eyes of the village, but from the heaviness of having to always be something. Just for now, you can simply be. Let your mind drift back to the quiet corners of the village, the glow of lanterns, the scent of tea, the soft hush of footsteps in mud. Let yourself return to the sound of distant drums, fading firework, and the pulse of a community that survives not through power, but persistence. And as your breathing slows even more, imagine that hillside again, that lone cedar tree above the fields, the wind brushing gently against your skin, the view stretching far beyond what the eye can hold. There, in that stillness, nothing is asked of you, nothing is expected. You are exactly enough. Let the quiet take over. Let your thoughts fade. Let sleep come. You've made it through another day in the samurai village. And now, rest.